Hey guys, it's Troy and here to do question and answer. You know, when I was doing a giveaway, one of the things I said for the comments to be able to enter the giveaway was, just off the top of my head, I said, I haven't done a Q&A video in a while, so I'll tell you what, why don't you just leave a question and that'll be your entry into the giveaway. So I did not expect so many questions so quickly. As a matter of fact, as more comes along during the course of the giveaway, I may end up appending onto this video. So in future videos, I may be clean shaven, maybe wearing a different shirt. Don't know. But wanted to get some of the questions and answers in while I have the opportunity, since I have the time right now waiting on some other activities. So question from Lawrence Sushak. I'm assuming that's how you pronounce your name. Forgive me, folks, if I don't pronounce names correctly, because some of you from different parts of the world. How old was Matthew when he started with fountain pens? Matthew was probably in first or second grade, I think. I think he was in second grade. Because he actually, I gave him a Jinhao 599, a red Jinhao. And he had me put in some Noodler's Cactus Green ink. And he was doing homework with a fountain pen, I think in second grade. He's in fifth grade now. Let's see. Jam Arelb. But Jamerelbe. Troy, thanks for the giveaway. Been enjoying your channel for a while now. Question for you. Which fountain pen, vintage or new, your choice, do you most regret buying thus far? That's an interesting question, and it's a very good question, and I'd say there's probably two of them, and they happen to be the same brand. Now, don't get me wrong, there's some pens I bought where I went, that wasn't a great purchase. Or I've bought some pens that were just plain disappointing. I've got some where I went, yeah, maybe I overpaid a little bit for that. But as far as buyer's remorse kind of thing, I'd say the Lamy Dialogue 3. And the reason I say that is this one sucks. There's no better way of putting it. I was very disappointed with this one. I'd seen them. I've seen them at pen shows, and I've seen them demonstrated. I'd seen videos on them. It works just fine. It just writes like garbage. And I've fought with it, struggled with it, and I was just really disappointed with my Lamy Dialogue 3, and I wish I hadn't have bought it, because they're not cheap. And the other Lamy that went along with that concept, the Lamy Ion, I was really looking forward to the Ion. There's some problems with them. I'm not the only one who has the cap rattle problem. It just didn't write like I was hoping, like I expected from a Lamy. So, two Lamys that I purchased in a row, not so great. Just disappointed. So, excellent question though. Appreciate that. Now, to continue on with pens that I regret having purchased, there was one, a Platinum 3776. A lot of people love that particular pen. I thought I would as well. I really didn't like the nib. It had a soft, fine nib on it, and personally, I hated it. And I no longer own that particular pen. But one of the things I didn't like is Platinum doesn't sell replacement nibs, so it's not like I could just pull that one out and put in something I would like to it. That's just a business practice of Platinum that I don't like. So there's one more. I didn't particularly, I kind of regretted buying that particular pen. What was the first fountain pen you purchased? Do you still have it and use it? Asks Daniel Somori. I do have it, and I do still use it. I've actually answered this question before, but I don't mind answering it yet again. A good friend of mine had a fountain pen when we were working together. We worked together at two different radio stations, and he had a WATERMAN PHILEAS, and it was green marble, which was much like this one. I bought this one because he had that particular brand, and I found it for like 40 bucks in a kit. But that wasn't the first one I bought. I bought this one. This one has no brand on it whatsoever, and I couldn't buy cartridges for it anymore. So it was cartridge fed only. I went ahead and purchased it, and I got it at, like, I don't know if it was a Walmart or whether it was a stationery store. I really don't know. Office supplies, and I couldn't find cartridges for it anymore. They just stopped carrying them. So I chucked it in a cardboard box, and there it sat for the better part of 20 years. Until I really started to get into this hobby, and I dug through this box one day, and there it was, my very first fountain pen. It's nothing special, no branding on it whatsoever, but it actually writes fairly well. And what I finally found, because now that I'm doing this kind of thing, I have access to more supplies, I did find a converter that would fit it, and I found cartridges that will fit it, and from time to time I do put it in rotation, and I do use it. It's not in my rotation right now. I've got over 300 of them, so I've got about enough pens to do one a day and not duplicate it throughout the course of the year. So this one here, I do still rotate it in whenever I get the whim, but I really consider this really to be my first fountain pen, because this is the only one that I had for like 20 years. And yeah, literally one for about 2 decades, and that's all I ever used was this one WATERMAN PHILEAS. So really that green one was my very first purchase, and I resurrected it, and it took a while because I just threw it in a box and I had to really clean it up and to get it going. Doug Gonzalez asks, or says, thanks for yet another generous giveaway. Troy, question, how do you feel about using more permanent inks in your pens? Nearly every ink vendor has a permanent line, yet I've always been very hesitant to give them a try. What are your thoughts? I've never been one where I think I gotta have a more permanent ink, a waterproof ink. Be honest with you, I do a lot of work at my desk on like notepads like this. And quite honestly, when I work on projects, I do checklists and notes and file paths that I write down rather than just put onto like a text document kind of thing, because they're notes to me to remind me to do stuff, and checklists, and I do a lot of analog at work just because I can. Not only that, I'm over half century old, so I'm still kind of old school on some stuff, even though I use computers all day long, spreadsheets, that kind of thing. So I really don't care so much about permanent inks. Not that I have a problem with them, I've just never really made the purchase with them, because I've never said, I need something that's going to last until, let's say Planet of the Apes happens, and Charlton Heston's going to be in the future, and I need him to be able to read the stuff that I write, kind of thing, you know what I mean? So, I know it's kind of a heck of a way to answer the question, but I've never really given it much thought, never thought I needed permanency. I've just bought inks that looked interesting to me, because generally anything I'm going to write is going to be seen within my lifetime, and probably even short term, no big deal. Joe Little writes, Troy, thanks for the giveaway and opportunity to win. I'm a newbie to the fountain pen hobby and would be most pleased. Okay, I took your advice from a previous video and visited Crazy Alan's Emporium and learned a lot. Good. Hey guys, anytime you go to some place that I recommend to you, or you contact a website and you interact with somebody that I tell you about, be sure to tell them you heard about them here. Usually I have good relationships with these guys, and it benefits me, them, and you. So, at Allen's you actually had a lot to show, and hopefully good. You learned a lot, especially paper, pens. As a hobby, I'm a wood turner. I've ventured into custom, kitless, bespoke pen making and found it fun and interesting. I'd like your thoughts on custom-made fountain pens versus branded pens. Any custom pen makers that stand out to you? And are they well received in the fountain pen community? Any thoughts you could share would be greatly appreciated. That's the one that I forgot to actually pull some pens out. So maybe I'll throw up a picture here over it. But Sean Newton out of Arkansas is very well known, very well spoken of. And I've got one of his pens that I waited, over a year and a half in order to get. Let's see, Jim Hines, I've got one of his pens. I've met and had dinner with Jim a couple of times. He's out of Texas. He's got some decent pricing and decent quality pens. Birmingham Pens has started going into making their own rather than selling branded pens. They've got their own brand now. Woodshed Pens does the same. Let's see, what else can I think of? Ryan Krusak. I like Ryan. He's a good guy, very friendly. I like his ethics and his worldview, and we have a lot in common in that way. And I've been eyeballing Ryan's pens every single time I go to a pen show, and I have actually been thinking about what kind of pen I would like for him to custom make for me, because even though I like what he has, there's something I would like to have more customized to me based upon some of the pens I've seen him do, but just customize it for me. Let's see if there are any others that I can think of. Oh, Jonathan Brooks, Carolina Pen Company. If you can get a hold of them, find all these online. I'll try to put some links down below in the description. I'm going to have a lot of links because I'm going to refer to a lot of things here in this particular video. By the way, a few more thoughts on the idea of custom-made pens. When you're dealing with a custom pen maker, you're talking usually one guy, maybe a few. Franklin Christoph is a smaller pen company. They're not like Pilot or some of the big German companies. But so they got a small shop, but they can still mass produce better than like a custom maker who is one guy who started probably in his backyard shed kind of thing and maybe has built up from there. So when you're talking about some of the names that I've mentioned, when you place a custom order, expect several things. Number one, it's gonna take longer than you expect. If he tells you it's gonna take 6 weeks, 6 months, 11 months, it's gonna take longer, period. Every single pen that I've ordered from a custom maker has taken much longer to get to me than the initial estimate, so be patient. Keep in mind, these guys do pens often one at a time, and it's just him usually. And if they're getting a little bigger, maybe an employee or two, but they're custom made by hand, each one after another. So don't expect it to come in a timely fashion. Be patient. You're going to pay sometimes more than you would by getting the mass-produced pens. It's because this guy's livelihood may be, or even a side business may be, turning them one at a time. Some have grown. I've actually watched a few pen makers like there's one in North Carolina, Wood Wonders of North Carolina. You can find him on Etsy, and I've bought from him before, and I saw him at the Raleigh Pen Show. His business has grown. I look at his selection; it's grown quite a bit, but he still makes them one at a time, so it's going to take a while. Jim Hines took a little longer to get mine. Sean Newton took a lot longer to get mine to me than he had originally told me. So expect that they're going to take the time to try to do them right, crank out your order in addition to everybody else's orders, and in addition to that, try to get stock in place so they can go to a pen show and try to make money at a pen show selling in bulk. So yeah, they've got your custom order, but then they're going to try to get a whole table full so they can try to make a living by selling pens at pen events and pen shows. Okay, so just keep that in mind if you're going to order a custom pen. Let's see. Flavio Jr. I have no Waterman pens. I'm eyeing a fountain pen from Waterman known as the Commander, in good shape, medium nib from the 40s. Do you know that pen? I am not familiar with a Commander. I am familiar with the Commando. So if you're looking at the Commando, I've got two of them, and I like them greatly. So the Waterman Commando. It is a lever filler from the 1940s. I've done a video on the Commando, maybe two of them, 2 videos on the Commando. So you guys can always look at my video history if you want to see some of the previous videos I've done, or search my channel like COMMANDO, and you may be able to find some of these videos. I'll try to put a link down below. I like the Commando, 1940s pens. And like I said, not familiar with the Commander, and I tried doing a search to find Commander, and I have not found anything in some of the reference material I've got for a Commander, but I have found material for a Commando. So just passing it along. Dean Martin, thanks for the generous giveaway. I was wondering what ink manufacturer has the best line of inks overall. I've always favored Diamine and Monteverde. It depends on who you ask. Ink is incredibly subjective. There are people who do entire YouTube channels just dealing with inks. I personally have my favorites based upon my personal experiences. I do like diamine. Some guy in England does diamine, and I've got a bunch of diamine inks. Monteverde inks I've got as well. Monteverde, though, probably are not manufactured by Monteverde, just because Jaffa brands typically doesn't do any of their own manufacturing, to my knowledge. There are a few Noodlers inks I don't mind. Some people are all Bay State Blue whenever they hear Noodlers. And, oh, corrosive. not really, but I've got some of my personal favorites. And my two personal favorite brands of inks are WATERMAN, because they're well behaved, they're easy to clean, they're fairly pH neutral, they're quality, and they just behave well. And Birmingham Pens, a seller out of the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area has started with a handful of inks, and to my knowledge, I was one of the first guys doing these YouTube videos that ran across Birmingham Pens and started talking about them and sharing about their inks. And eventually, you know, a year or two later, some of the bigger channels than mine have been showing and talking about Birmingham inks, and word's gotten out, and I'm glad to see that, because they've got a lot of decent inks. They're well behaved. They're easy to clean, sort of like the WATERMAN inks, and I know they're, as I recall, most of them come from Germany. So he reps those, renames them, rebrands them as his own. I don't have a problem with that. But I do like pretty much not every single color, but every single ink that I've used from Birmingham in terms of how it behaves. I've been happy. So those are my go-tos, are Birmingham and WATERMAN. I do have others. Robert Oster, I like a lot of his colors. I think some of them are really hard to clean. Almost some of them have been as hard to clean as Bay State Blue, quite honestly. So, oh, let's see. Diploa. Thanks for the giveaway. Question is, what has been your worst pen-related accident? We're talking accidentally damaging a pen. Oh, let's see. Well, I can show you probably the worst accident that I've had is, let me reach to grab this. I was using this pen slip. This WATERMAN 100-year pen. First year production, nice and ribbed. What I have read from Richard Binder's website is if it's red tipped at the end, then that's a replacement tip, and it's not an original tip. Okay? Well, I had this pen only like a day or two. I was carrying it around in this particular slip. And unfortunately, I had turned it upside down, and it fell right out. And matter of fact, it probably fell tip end first. It hit the ground, it hit the floor, crashed, broke. I heard plastic break. I was like, no! It broke that tip right off. Fortunately for me, it didn't go too far. There is a chip out of it right in there. Super glue. Oh, I was not happy though, because I know it's not easy to get that repaired. Now, other mishaps, accidentally ruining a pen. Because I tend to get vintage pens and work on them, simple as Esther Brooks even. I've had some WATERMANs, a WATERMAN I recently ruined, by the way. I've got some pens that I have tried to work on, take apart, and try to just get them apart. Or I had this discussion with another guy who's also does pen reviews on this. He was commenting on one of my posts. I was working just trying to polish up an Esterbrook, and apparently that particular one was really thin-walled, and I got it apart, no problem, resacking it, no problem, polishing up the pen, and it just snapped in my... I was like, what? You gotta be kidding me! So, yeah, that kind of happened. So most of my mishaps or accidents have happened in the process of trying to restore something. I had one just recently where I literally broke the nib because it was a very thin, very brittle nib. Trying to get it apart because I couldn't get it to write, and obviously somebody else also had tried doing work on it because I found a wire down through the ink channel that I had to pull out. It's like, really? So someone else had the same problem I've been having, but okay, and I still couldn't get it to write. Tried to get it apart, and in so doing, I snapped the nib. Rick K. Is there a pen that's been a particularly pleasant surprise? Have you received a pen that upon first glance inspired very low expectations, but once inked proved to be a hidden gem? Actually, I've got a couple of those, surprisingly enough. The Moonman M2 was actually one that I thought wrote extremely well, and I got it with a medium nib, and along with it came a 1.1 millimeter stub, which, by the way, I've since... that went down the drain, literally, when I was cleaning, so... Nemesine Singularity. I didn't expect much out of this. Wrote very, very nicely. And I've given some of these away. My son has one. My wife has one. I've given some to friends. I know that these are going bye-bye, but that was one. The Jinhao 911 was one that really surprised me as to how well it wrote. And that should look familiar to people who like Parker 51s, that kind of thing. So that one actually wrote fairly well. And not necessarily one that I had low expectations on, but just one that exceeded my expectations because I like vintage Watermans. I bought this Waterman 58. I already had a 58. It was one of my Grail pens. I've had two Grail pens. I got them both. Well, the same seller from which I got the vintage Waterman 58 in a red ripple in exceedingly good condition came across this one and hit me up and asked me if I would be interested in it. And it has the black chase hard rubber cap, very nicely so. It looks like there is no clip for it, and the bottom part has either extremely worn chasing or was meant to be a smooth, but you can actually, when you look at it, visually inspect it, you can see it looked like there was some chasing, but mismatched, okay? They don't go together. And I filled it up, wrote with it, and I was like, ooh, one of the best writing pens I own is this one right here, baby. That one. This Waterman 58 is so beautifully smooth. It feels great in the hand. The size is perfect and writes wonderfully so. All right, which I guess goes back to a previous question. Let me add to it about ones that I would regret purchasing. Well, some I've been disappointed in. A lot of modern Jaffa branded like Monteverdes and Conklins. I've had some bad success with those. I don't regret the purchase. I regret the fact they didn't write well. That was one that I got. Didn't expect a tremendous amount of it. Had roughly good expectations, and they exceeded my expectations. So I like that when that happens. All right, Cynthia Miller. Question, how many pens do you keep inked at a time? Short answer, way too many. I used to have 50, 60, 70 pens at a time. Right now I've got it down. I just checked my spreadsheet prior to hitting the record button. And I'm looking at the time here, and 34 are what I have at least documented as being inked. That doesn't mean that's all of them, but it means all the ones that are in my spreadsheet and documented as being inked. I've got 34 at the moment. M. Duran. Have you ever seen Bigfoot? Great question. Yes, I have. Unfortunately, I found out, basically, I was dating her. She shaved herself down, and I dated her for a while. There's probably several girls. Was he talking about me? If you're asking yourself that question, yes, I'm talking about you. Oh, let's see. Stefan Anastasio. Anastasio? I don't know. Rules are a little harsh. Not many will be able to meet those rules. Thanks for the humor. Hey, what would you say? Would you show us those little drawers behind you in a Q&A session? Let's do that now. So the question was asked about the drawers that sit behind me. So I'm flipping around, and here you go. Now, I don't normally let people into my drawers, except my wife. But okay, here's the deal. I've got two sets of drawers. This is the majority of my pen collection right here. And these
4 sets of drawers. And over here is where I keep parts, pieces, not all, but some of the ones I'm able to put in some drawers. And I've got some stuff I keep down here in an old drawer, and I keep little pieces and parts and some of these things and supplies in here. So just real quick, I try to keep everything labeled as to what would be in that particular drawer, like Visconti's, Mont Blanc, Omas, Waterman, all the way down here. I got to get some more drawers because I got 2 sets of drawers for Watermans, and that's not all of them, and I'm not able to fit them. Hospital drawer, I keep a hospital drawer of stuff that I need to fix, that kind of stuff. Esther Brooks. So I try to keep all these labeled, and I've got a bunch that still need to be cleaned, so a bunch of them are missing. Let's see, Lamy, that kind of thing. So this is how I keep most of my pens for my collection, to give you an idea. My oversized ones that don't normally fit in the smaller drawers. Let's see, Diplomats, Wing Songs, Schaefer's, vintage. These are all vintage pens down here, kind of thing. This is assorted because I don't have any labels on this, and I've got all different brands thrown in here. Not enough to make a drawer in and of themselves. So over here, I just decided that instead of having these drawers that I showed you over here stuffed full of ink sacks and different bags and stuff, I go ahead and do them. So like ink sacks all along the top here for when I'm changing out lever fillers or aerometric fillers. There you go. Sack cement, stuff like that. Basic tools, talc. I got an assortment of, well, you can't really see them because they're just kind of chucked in here, but some nibs, some spare nibs here, Lamy style nibs, that kind of thing. Let's see what else. Syringes. I also keep some of those in a drawer right next to me at my desk. It's a little easier. Let's see. TWSBI tool. Let's see. Wax seals, ink blotters. I keep lighters so when I use my wax seals that I can heat it up. Pencil lead for mechanical pencils. Foil, silicone grease. I always keep some silicone grease in here. Tweezers, Esterbrook parts. Some pens I've broken or just ended up with parts. Esterbrook nibs. Let's see, some stuff that went with my Apple Watch. Oh, converters. I keep different converters in these. Some of them I may have run out of, but like Waterman converters, Mont Blanc converters. I think I only got one left of that. And I come down here and Pelican cartridges. Well, yeah, Pelican for the 400 or that. Let's see, Lamy cartridges, converters, cartridges, converters, that kind of stuff. Let's see, different cartridges. I keep them labeled so I know what kind of pen they go with, what brand. For instance, Schaefer. Let's see, Ahau, Waterman, Standard. And there's not a whole lot of real estate on my desk, so these kind of things all get shoved together, stuck behind my phone. So there you go. I got a bunch of empty drawers too for more room. I just ordered a big old set. So there you go. There's my my drawer tour.
Love Kinda Peril asks or writes, "Hey, thanks for the funny rules in the giveaway. Number 9's too funny." Yeah, basically, you don't like it? Get your own YouTube channel. I've got questions. How many fountain pens you have? My spreadsheet shows 298 at the moment, but I've got a lot more that I don't even have on the spreadsheet. Let's see. Do enjoy your family, your hobby from beginning. They know about it. I realize you're not from here, and you even said, sorry for my English. Not a problem. I know what you're trying to say, okay? So, does my family enjoy my hobby, and did they know about it from the beginning? My wife knew that I used fountain pens, like I talked about earlier, this one here, because actually when we were dating, some of the cards I would give her early on in our relationship. And didn't write so well in the card, and I even commented in one of the cards that she found just recently from years ago. Said my fountain pen doesn't seem to like this card very well. She knew that I used one, and I didn't have a hobby. I pretty much have indulged anybody in my family with hobbies that kind of interest them. And you know, I've had a hobby in the past that I indulged myself in, collecting, and I stopped that basically when I started dating my wife. Put all that on the back burner. And a while ago, I was writing with a fountain pen, and I just said, "There's got to be other ones out there. Let's see what else is out there." And that led to buying like a Jinhao 450. So what else is out there? Which led to something else. Okay, well, let's see what else is out there. And it snowballed, and here I am. So, does my family enjoy the hobby? Matthew himself has like 75, 80 pens of his own. My wife Sharon loves a good pen as well. She kind of has enjoyed the fact that I have this hobby, because her collection has grown to 70 or 80 pens of her own. She's got some really nice ones. Even my mother-in-law has been given some really nice pens, some Visconti and upper-end Watermans, that kind of thing. So, yeah. Also, do you have friends in your town with the same hobby? And do you meet them and share fountain pens and ink knowledge? As far as around here, where I live, no. There is the Triangle Pen Club that does meet at least once, every other week or once a month. I don't remember which. But they do meet about an hour and a half from here on the other side of the triangle. I'm on the east side of the triangle. They meet over on the west side of the triangle area of North Carolina. The triangle area is considered Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill. And I am east of Raleigh by about 35 miles, still considered the greater Raleigh Metro / Triangle Metro. And I would like to go to their meetup, but they hold it on Sunday afternoons at 2 o'clock. And that is extremely inconvenient for me. Number one, my family and I go to regular church services on Sunday. And we would not be able to get out in time for me to make the hour and a half trip there. In addition to that, every other Sunday, I lead a men's group at our church. And since I lead a men's group, I have a responsibility to be a leader, to show up, to be there, to be prepared, and to spend some time in discipleship, and spend some time teaching and learning along with other men, spending time in prayer, supporting one another, that kind of thing. So that's where I'm at with that. Unfortunately, there are really no other folks that I fellowship with in this area. Okay, continuing on with the next, Ben Dunbar. What do you think of Monteverde rebranding a Jinhao 992 as the Monza and selling them for more than 10 times the price? I actually did a video on this, and I'll try to put a link to it. Yeah, I'm not a fan of what they did. I realize I'm giving away a Monza because I got those at a discount, and it's a name that more people will get. Hey, I'm giving away Jinhao 992s. Not many people will be commenting down here. Here's the thing. I don't know who they're made by, quite honestly. I don't know if it's just a Jinhao or if it's a different manufacturer making them for Jaffa brands. Got to be honest with you. Jaffa brands, there's a lot of things that they do that are head scratchers to me that I wish they wouldn't do some of the things the way that they do. And this is one of them. And one of the things, Jinhao 992, I can't get them in anything but a fine nib. So when the Monteverde Monza came out, and it was like 20 bucks or so, I was like, really? 20? 15 maybe? To get it in a medium nib. And hopefully it's a little better quality than a 992. Not that I've had any problems with 992s. But then again, you got to keep in mind, too, that, it's kind of a copy of a Sailor 1911 as it is, if I recall. That's what it is. The bottom line is the Jinhao is nothing but a copy of another pen. And the Monza is essentially, I'm assuming it's going to be Jinhao, and it's just a rebranded Jinhao 992. Yeah, not a fan of what they did. I understand why they did it. it's nothing new. And I actually compared these three pens side by side in my video. So yeah, I got some ink on my finger now because I've been playing with some stuff. So you guys can go check out that video. Yang Yu, thanks for the giveaway. Do you find this one better than the Jinhao 992? It looks similar from the video. Just kind of covered that. It is very similar. They do look very much... Oh, you know what? The Lorelei. The Lingmo Lorelei is another one. That's right in there. Same thing. The Lingmo, I think the Sailor Prophet slash 1911. You know, it's all kind of the same general design, knockoff, if you will. But yeah, the Jinhao 992, don't get me wrong. I use Jinhao 992s. I give away a lot of Jinhao 992s. I had one in my pocket just earlier. I keep one actually. I've had several of these clear ones. I've been giving them away, all different colors. I've got some that were just given to me here recently. I've been giving some of those away too. I keep this in my pocket along with my pen of the day. Speaking of which, my pen of the day today, Waterman Exception Day and Night. But I do keep a Jinhao 992 for giveaway, and when that one's gone, I'll put another one in there. And when that one's gone, I'll put another one in there. And I've given some others, I've sent some by mail, I've given some in person, other than just keeping it there too. So, you know, the 992 is not a bad pen for the price. But yeah, I'm still not a fan of the idea that that the Jinhao and the Monza are essentially the same thing, just rebranded and jacked up the price. At least the big difference is with the Monza, you can at least get the nib choice that you want. All right. Antonio Rafa, good luck everyone. Question: if you had to survive with only one pen for the rest of your life, which would it be? It would be one that I've already shown you guys. It would be that Waterman 58 right there. It's not the quote biggest or the best Waterman 58 because I got one here that's worth 3 times what I paid for this one. But this one is absolutely one of my all-time favorites here in my collection. Ever since I got it, inked it up, I was like, yeah, love it. So if I had to get rid of every other pen, if I had to walk away and run out the door and I'd never have another pen in my life, or fountain pen, it would be this one right here. Just because I love how it writes, I love the size of it. It's my preferred oversize, and it's just so smooth. And it's a vintage, and it's my favorite brand with my favorite nib. All right, next. Semyon Zhutovsky. What's the most expensive fountain pen you own? And what is the most valuable fountain pen you own? The most interesting is to reveal that most probably the most expensive is not the most valuable, or maybe it is. Alright, the most expensive one I own is probably this one right here. This is a Waterman Edson in Boucheron. And the Boucheron edition, Boucheron is a French jeweler. Waterman is now a Paris or a French-based manufacturer ever since production got moved to France and they shut down American operations. And this came out in the 1990s. Well, the Waterman Edson, fantastic pens. I would like to add some more Edsons. I've used Edsons, like them, been looking at them, and I was wanting to jump on one. Then I saw, ooh, the Boucheron edition. These right now are selling on eBay for anywhere from $2,500 to $4,000. I did not pay that, but that is what they're going for right now. Now, that being said, I'm reminded of one more that actually was fairly... that, by the way, that was my hurricane lamp. In case we lost power during Hurricane Dorian, that lamp was in here. There's one more Waterman that actually comes to mind that I mentioned just a little bit ago. This is the Waterman 58, just like this is the 58. And this is in red ripple, fantastic, pristine condition with a flexible nib. You just don't find big old flexible nibs like this in the 58 quite as much, a little more rare. So this pen right here is actually not cheap either. These are going for, I've seen at pen shows, for about $1,500. And be honest with you, I didn't pay that either. But these two, both being Watermans, are probably the most expensive two pens in my collection. As far as in terms of the most expensive versus the most valuable, the answer is one and the same for me, right there. Let's see. OMG, according to The Fluff Life. Love this giveaway. A question that I would think would be fun to know. What is your favorite boy band? You know, I don't really have one because I was never a big boy band enthusiast, but if I had to pick one, it's probably going to be New Kids on the Block. You know, they've always been catchy, enjoyed some of their stuff from time to time, and quite honestly, they have a New Kids on the Block cruise, and my wife and I love to take cruises together. We'll be doing another one here shortly. We've done, 10 or 11 of them together, and we enjoy going on a cruise to get away from, that's our favorite, most economical way for us of vacationing, and they do a New Kids on the Block cruise. I would love to do that, because, number one, it's something that I can't really say I grew up listening to them because I was already a teenager, I think, when they came out. I was already in college when New Kids on the Block had come out, so that would be my guess. I would throw that one. Joajas. Thanks for the giveaway. My question is, do you know any website where we can get good nibs of various sizes and grinds at a good price without hefty shipping charges? So far, for people like me who are not in the USA, Goulet pens is pretty much not worth it due to the freight charges. Alright, couple things. Number one, not to down Goulet, but here's the thing. Yeah, Goulet gets stuff into them. They don't do a lot of grinds and stuff. So if you're looking for customizations on nibs, they're not the place to go anyway. If you're looking for a replacement nib, you know, Anderson pens would have them, Birmingham pens has some, Goulet pens has them, and you're going to find some decent nibs, probably Yovo nibs, that would go and work well for you, but you're not going to get the custom grind. So you'd have to go to someplace like the Nibsmith. I'll put a link down there. Nibs.com, not really sure what they have. Mike Masayama, if you're looking for, go to Mike It Right or Mike It Work. I think it's Mike It Work. And I'll try to put a link down there. He's a custom, he's probably the top dog as far as doing nib work. And I don't know if he sells nibs so much as he sells his services on nibs. But I know that he does nibs for Franklin Christoph when they put in a Mike Masayama nib in some of their pens. As far as shipping charges, I don't know what to tell you. I'm here in the U.S. Mike is Masayama. He's in the U.S. Most of the companies I'm familiar with or have mentioned are in the U.S. So I don't know what shipping costs are going to be, and especially, little nibs. I've got here on my desk a couple of nibs that I haven't put away yet that I got from Fountain Pen Revolution. Okay, these are, that's probably all of $2 or $3 worth of nibs sitting here that I plan on playing with. I can't imagine spending a lot more money to get them shipped to me than I do for the nibs themselves. So I'm sorry that you may not be in the best of positions in order to get stuff at a decent. I've paid more for shipping than for some pens before, but yeah, I don't know what to tell you on that one. Goulet is a decent source when you're getting nibs, and if you're already getting other stuff to have a nib thrown in, it's no big deal. Diana Dulanto, thanks for the giveaway. My question is, do you have a favorite fountain pen company or brand? And if so, which is it, or are they? All right, Diana, you must be fairly new to the channel, I'm guessing. Only because I've talked a lot in the past about Waterman. And by the way, that's not a slam. If you guys are new, thank you. I appreciate people coming and new folks. I welcome new viewers all the time, and I'm glad to be able to share what I can. But One of the things I have shared repeatedly is that Waterman tends to be my favorite brand, both vintage and new. I've shared several of them here. You know, the Waterman Exception was my pen of the day. I just showed you a little bit ago. And the Waterman PHILEAS was one of my first ever fountain pens that I used exclusively for like 20 years. I just shared with you some of the more expensive pens that I've got. The most expensive ones I've got, they're Waterman. I love vintage Waterman pens. I've got a bunch of them here on my desk that I've shown during the course of this video. So that's my first favorite brand. Unfortunately, Waterman has not really been on their game as far as modern pens since about the 1990s or so. I thought that's when they really were hitting some fantastic luxury pens, and up through the early 2000s. Lately, they're owned by, I think, Newell Rubbermaid now, and they haven't really been innovating so much. I've got some of their newer stuff, like the Hemisphere. The Hemisphere is not a bad pen. It's a decent pen, and it performs well. Not like the EDSON, not like the PHILEAS was just a workhorse of a pen, and I see them all over the place, and they're actually costing more than what I paid for them brand new. Second favorite brand is Sheaffer, and Sheaffer now is owned by, I think, the AT Cross company, and Sheaffer was an American company. Vintage stuff, fantastic. I got a bunch of vintage Sheaffers. They're my second favorite brand. So vintage Sheaffers, the Snorkels, the PFMs, really like them. Sheaffer Balance, really, really like them. Jade flat tops, I love them. I've worked on some. They made a sub-brand Fine Line, which I just recently showed you here on this channel, and I gave to somebody, and you may just see again on somebody else's channel here shortly. So those are my two favorite brands. And there's other brands out there that I absolutely love. I mean, I love some of the Omas that I've got, Mont Blanc that I've got. I love them. But as far as categorizing as my favorite brand, Waterman and Sheaffer overall are my two favorite brands. Modern day Sheaffers, there are some, like I said, from the early 2000s that I kind of like. AntiqueDigger.com has some awesome Sheaffers for sale right now that are multiple hundreds of dollars for some really nice pens. And I'm really, really tempted to get a more modern Sheaffer that I see that just, ooh. And he's got some that are even higher that just, they don't appeal to me, just the way they look. The texture, it's not where I want to go with it. And there's some that are actually a little cheaper that I see that I really, really like because it's more my style, my personal. That's one of the things about pen collecting, guys. It is so subjective to you, your personal likes. I do this channel to give you ideas, maybe a little more knowledge, because I've had to work to get the knowledge that I've got, and I'm still learning as I go along. And that's why I did this channel, so you can see the growth where I was and where I am now, and so I can help you. For those of you who message me, and you know that I'm very good at responding to social media as well as email, that kind of thing. I'm always willing to help people out and want to see you guys excel and learn, because I love the hobby. All right, Commander Darwin. I'm assuming CMDR means Commander. I watched your great review of the Waterman CF. I'm a fan also. I love most anything that Harley Earl had a hand in designing. I've seen a few for sale, but no working converters come with them. Very true. They're hard to come by. They are out there, though. I've seen several dried up and cracked ones that are ready for the trash. What do you advise to get for regular use for a CF? Good question. I'll tell you what I do and what I'm not necessarily willing to do. Converters are out there. They're aftermarket, and unfortunately they're like $25 each. 20 bucks plus shipping out of France is probably the cheapest that I've seen anywhere. There was a local American distributor for a while that was carrying them on their website. I bookmarked it, went back a couple months later, and I said, all right, maybe I'll bite at it. Now, gone. They don't have any more in stock. eBay is about the only place you're really going to find any, and I did some searching on eBay. This is my favorite Waterman CF. Not that I like the texture quite so much. My wife hates this pen just because of the texture. I like it because I like how it writes. I like the quality of it. This one needs to be clean, so if you see ink on it, it's because it's actually in my pile to clean. And this is what their converter looks like. And I can tell you right now, this is the only Waterman CF converter that I own. They just push, you know, they pull out, they push in, they're friction fit, and just that converter, it's more often than the pen itself. So you can buy a converter for 20 plus another 5 for shipping, 25 bucks. I paid $6 for the one I just did the video on here just recently. So do I want to pay $25 for a converter to put into a $6 pen? Probably not. So here's what I do. Oftentimes, some will come with a cartridge, and you can find cartridges for the CF. eBay is where I picked up a bunch of them. Matter of fact, these are all Waterman CF cartridges. Now, when you get them, if you get them in a sealed box, because they're still out there, and typically they're shipped from Europe, you can see that they're not full. This one is actually almost empty because ink does evaporate out of a plastic capsule. Not a problem though, because what I tend to do is I will puncture them, flush them out. Blunt tip syringe, see that needle? It goes on the end of a plastic syringe. And what I will do is, and I got to clean the syringe out because you can see there's a little bit of ink because I was using it like just yesterday. So before I express this out, because I just sprayed green ink. But what I will do is I will fill this full of water and I will flush out ink residue out of these. I've got a couple that are sitting here that are empty. The older style and then the newer ones, which are a little cheaper. But and then what you can do, once you get that done, fill this with some ink, inject it into the end, and fill these cartridges, which is exactly what I did with the video that I had just done. Is I took the cartridge that it came with, flushed it out with warm water, and just filled it with one of these. Okay? So that's my advice for Waterman CFs. And I realize it's not like you can have a spare cartridge with you, so you just because they're old. They're from the 1950s. I mean, what are you going to do? Alrighty. Next question. Stargazer writes, Troy, I enjoyed the last video. I like how you write your W's as Waterman does. I do that on purpose. I'm glad you noticed. By the way, really enjoyed reading about fountain pen history on their site, such as cartridge and clip invention. I was about to order an Monza. Family question. Does your family prefer modern or vintage pens? Alright, Wifey Poo only owns modern pens. And I guess that's by necessity. She doesn't want to learn or be bothered with necessarily some vintage ones. She wants to be able to throw them in her purse or in a container or a zippered pocket, whatever, in her purse and go. And yeah, guess who has to ink them up and clean them? Yep. She has yet to ink up a single pen on her own. I've done it all. Mother-in-law the same way. With hers, I've done every inking. I've done every cleaning. Matthew, same way. I've done every inking and every cleaning for him because, well, I mean, he just turned 10. And yes, I'm trying to get him to work with it. I can tell you this, I've cleaned up enough spilled ink that I don't like cleaning up spilled ink. Matthew likes them both. He's got a couple of vintage pens. He has a CF of his own. He also has a vintage Esterbrook. He has a couple of, let's see, I think Steph from Grand Mia Pens gave him a Parker 45, I think. And he's got a Parker 51. And so Matthew kind of likes them both. He likes pretty much anything he can get his hands on and play with. I'm the one who has to go through and clean them out. As a matter of fact, I probably showed you in the last video. Yeah, most of those are his. Most of those are Matthew's that I have to go through and I have to clean those up. And, you know, this Waterman that I just showed you, yeah, that can go in there. That has to be cleaned up. So, but the family pretty much, Matthew likes either. Mother-in-law, she likes whatever I give her, essentially. And Sharon, she likes mostly modern pens because she doesn't want to be bothered so much with the vintage stuff. I suppose if I gave her a vintage one, she'd like it. Let's see. What is my favorite filling mechanism and why? Asks James Eck. You know, the default answer that most give is cartridge converter because they're easier. It's easy to replace a converter. It's easy to replace cartridges. They're easier to clean. Yes and no. I do like cartridge converter just fine. I personally do. I got a love-hate relationship with lever fillers. I love vintage, and I've had to learn how to change out ink sacs and play with them, and I've broken a good many of them in learning about them, so I kind of hate them in some regards. I like them in other regards, especially ones that have removable nibs like Esterbrooks. I really like those. But I also like piston fillers. Why do I like piston fillers? I like them because you pretty usually get a really good ink draw. Not only do you get a really good ink draw on a piston filler, you know, it's going to last a while. It's easy to do. You don't have to take it apart to mess with a cartridge. And the downside of that, though, is if you get one like a Pelican, that you can actually remove the nib, it's easy to clean. Just like when I was talking about the lever fillers, if you can remove a nib on a lever filler, they're easy to clean, so I really like them that way. Usually you don't. But the same with piston fillers. If you get a piston filler, you can remove the nib. I kind of like piston fillers just because it's built into the pen. They tend to be a little better quality. So I tend to like that, piston fillers, as my favorite. And I had another question that just came in actually since I started recording this. Wanted to know about my ink collection, and do inks have a shelf life? Good questions both. I'll start with a shelf life first. I have been told that inks do indeed have a shelf life. Personally, I'm not worried about it. I've got inks I've had up here for years. I've got some inks that came in cartridges that are from the 1960s and 50s that are still viable ink, and it still works and writes okay. But I was told that, yeah, expect about a 2-year shelf life for inks. Well, mine don't sit out in the sun. They sit here in my office, so they're actually in a cool, dry place, and right up here behind my head, like you see every single video that I do. And I've never had a problem, ever, with ink having a shelf life, with one brand that was kind of the exception, and quite honestly, I don't own any. I can't say I don't own any of their ink. The problematic ones I've had, I've gotten rid of. And I've run across some inks I like, some I don't. But there's some inks that I just, you know, this is garbage ink. Throw it in the trash can kind of thing. And I've done that a few times. So, my ink collection, I'm not a guy big on inks as much as I am the pens themselves, but I do have inks that I like, and I'll show you up here. I'll show you a video of the inks. Alright, the question was, how big is my ink collection? Well, it was bigger than this. I've actually, these are all my ink samples in these little tubes, and these are test tube racks that I've got, and you know, I've used up a bunch of samples and not replenished them. I've got in the back some Pelican inks, let's see, some Lamy inks, and I've got some Japanese inks back there, a bunch of Birmingham inks over here. Matter of fact, it's kind of dark in there, so let me see if I can get you a better light source. So some Birmingham inks back in there. Let's see, some Robert Oster, some Franklin Christoph, Waterman, Monteverde, Noodlers. So this is my ink collection here. I'm not a big time ink guy, but I do find a few that I like, and I kind of stick with them, and I do like a little bit of variety. All right, and Matthew Schneider writes this. Thanks for the giveaway. I'm curious to know if you consider yourself a pen collector or more of a user. Do you use all your pens regularly? Well, actually, I consider myself both. I do collect them. There are some guys out there who collect, and they have some phenomenal collections, where I know one guy who wanted like a Schaefer snorkel, and he got like every color. that's in the Schaefer snorkel. And the knowledge base that this guy has and some other guys that I've met astound me. I know there's some people who like Parker Vacuumatics, and they will get like one of every model and every color, and that's awesome to complete a collection. I'm not that kind of collector. I typically get pens that interest me, that I like. Ones that, because of the color, because of the filling mechanism, because of the size of it, because I've heard good things about them, because they just intrigue me. I look at them and I go, that would be pretty cool. And so I get one. Or I'd use one and I go, I want one of those in my collection. There's still some out there that I see that I want in my collection. So, am I a user? You better believe it. I use every single pen that I buy. There are guys who buy them for investments to have a collection. I remember one guy buying this one particular pen, and I said, wow, that must be really fun to write with. He goes, what, write? Who writes with this? So he bought it for a collection, to have in his collection to fill out something. That's not me. I'm the kind of guy that if I'm going to buy it, I'm fairly pragmatic about my inks. I'm fairly pragmatic about the pens that I buy. I don't want to buy a pen I can't use. And some people buy them for investment, or some just for the hobby and the enjoyment of having it. And they will literally go out and buy a pen just to own it. And I do that to an extent. I don't necessarily do it for status, because I use low-end pens. I use high-end pens. I buy stuff that appeals to me. All right, continuing on with another question. Thiago Hiromi. I don't know if I got that right. Hopefully I got it fairly close. Thanks for the giveaway, Troy. Do you believe you've gotten your Holy Grail pen, or are you still looking for one? If you're still looking for, what would be your dreams fountain pen? Well, I've kind of answered that already. When you saw my Waterman Edson Boucheron that I've shared earlier in the video, that was my first Grail pen. It's something I really, really wanted, fell in love with, and still am in love with that particular pen. And also, when I was at a pen show, I saw antique Waterman, let's see, Red Ripple Waterman 58. I shared that with you as well. Those are my two dream pens, two Grail pens. Both of those have been achieved. I've got some others, though, that I really would like to add to my collection. And there's at least one more Grail pen that I've seen was a Grail pen of some others. I've actually seen them, touched them, and looked at them and went, oh, I would like to have them. So I do have a list that I keep that are on my my wish list. I'll throw them up here. You know, like a Sailor King of Pen. I don't have one yet. I wouldn't mind having one. A Pilot Miu 701. Let's see, a Lambro LB5. I know he doesn't make LB5s anymore, but the Visconti Declaration of Independence pen. Personally, that would mean a lot to me. Like a Nikaya dorsal fin. A Conway Stewart Churchill. I've seen a gorgeous Conway Stewart Churchill I wouldn't mind having. Maybe a Condit king size bulk filler. A nice deco band from Wall. Mentioned a Waterman 20. The Visconti Di Mole Knights Templar. I fell in love with the look of that pen, and I see that Visconti Dave, now called Penultimate Dave in England, he recently got one. That was his Grail pen, and it's been on my wish list for a couple of years now, that kind of thing. So, anyway, those are just a few, and I actually keep a list, and the list that I keep is what I'm putting on the screen for you, just to give you an idea, some of the things I'm keeping my eye out for. And there are actually a few others I've seen out there, too, and usually, like the Want Your Dream pen, I wouldn't mind getting, and a few others. Some of these Urushi pens that are out there, I wouldn't mind having. I want to add a Ryan Krusak, talked about that and earlier, so... Kimberly Wheeler writes, thanks for the giveaway. What do you think is a good place to go to learn how to replace a sack on an old Esterbrook? Very good question. And I had to learn how to replace a sack on an old Imperial, which was the first vintage pen I ever bought, a 1947 pen, and didn't know anything about them. And it was unusable. So I had to learn how to fix it. I took it as a challenge. Richard Bender has a website, richardspens.com. I probably have a link to it down below. And I learned some of the basics of what is necessary to change a sack. I had not seen any videos on how to do it. I just read that web page and went ahead and experimented and played with it. Be honest with you, Kimberly, I have tried twice to do a video on ink sac replacement because I do that a lot myself. I actually if you look at some of my past videos, even just recently, I've replaced ink sacs just within the last couple of weeks, and I've put those videos up here. And, you know, like I said, twice I've tried filming ink sac replacement, and both of them did not go very well as far as how to record. And also, I actually ran across a problem. One of them was just a garbage pen. It was pretty much disposable, and I ruined the pen because trying to get the section out, the plastic was almost like, it was really, really cheap. It was an unbranded pen, and it was almost like, you know that those plastic capsules you get out of a gumball machine? It was like that sort of stuff, and it literally melted under a heat source. That I've never had a problem with anything melting before, kind of thing. So stuff like that. And I've got another one that's an old WATERMAN, and I was going to replace it. It's a great looking pen, and I've been having so hard a time getting that section to come out. So that's something that I tried recording both of those, and then I turned right around and get a couple others. Said, nah, I'm not going to bother recording it because yeah, I may have some more problems, especially one of them being a WATERMAN tape right. What if I run across problems with you know, the section, and I need to tear it apart in order to get it to work right? Don't want to record it, but you know what? It went flawlessly, and I didn't have to tear apart the section. I just had to pull the section out from the barrel. All right, I missed that opportunity. I've since found one or two videos. And there was no narration for it whatsoever. It was just a guy doing it. And he actually did a pretty good job showing how to replace it. So that's something that you can find a few videos. And I've been asked more than once to do a video on it. And I've got some pens here that I can probably play with some more. And I really need to put that high on my priority list. So I'll be looking to do that. And then Ferdinand asks, or writes, love the background music. Who wrote it? Well, it's production music, and this is the CD. I'm glad I ripped that song off from the CD years ago, and I've had it on my computer because I can't get anything off from the CD. It's one that the guy who wrote the stuff there's his website that you could probably read off from that. Audiotoolsonline.com. I've got a bunch of CDs for audio production. I worked my way through high school and college in radio, and I was actually fairly good at it. I've worked at several different radio stations. I used to make side money doing voiceover work for radio and TV. I had my own TV talk show for a while. I had my own television commentary for about 5 minutes a week on a local TV station where they asked me to do some commentary. I used to be a newspaper columnist and a blogger, and I used to do podcasting, and I needed production music for my podcast, and so I had a production music library. And this happened to be one cut that I liked, and I chose to use for my television 5-minute commentaries. This YouTube channel was used for that purpose. One of the things I wish I had done is started a brand new YouTube channel for the hobby and all the pen stuff. Made it a separate one. Knowing what I know now, I would have done that. But I already had a YouTube channel, so I just started putting all my hobby and my pen stuff on it. But also, there are videos of a couple hundred commentaries that I did for television. So it's a nice small town or a small area TV station. I only put it up there, these videos, for people who weren't able to see the TV broadcast signal. I had friends and family members said, hey, we'd love to see your TV show. We just, we're not within the broadcast range or cable carriage. So I put them on YouTube for them to see. And, I didn't get a lot of views, didn't expect to. But YouTube, unfortunately, has really, they've done a lot of censorship. They've written algorithms to help suppress people with any kind of political views, any kind of religious views. They tend to write algorithms that help keep that suppressed and to hide some of those videos. As a result of another business decision they made to demonetize any of the smaller channels, myself and several other content creators out there have had the same problem, where I was actually getting great growth on my channel. It kept going up, kept going up, kept going up very steadily, a nice steady climb, and then suddenly nothing but a plateau for a long time after YouTube took the decision to demonetize this channel. I only made a couple $100, and I plowed that right back into the production software I'm using for this video. And I mean, come on. It's not like I do this. There are people who make thousands and thousands of dollars off from YouTube. I wasn't one of them, and I wasn't trying to. That's not the reason I did this channel. So the growth of this channel really stopped for quite a while, and you don't just get a whole lot of subscription cancellations, but I'm watching them up and then down a couple, up, down a couple, up, down a couple, and it makes me look at, and knowing people, and I literally know of, and people I have interacted with that I've known personally, I've watched them have some of the same problems. So it's not just me, it's kind of a YouTube thing, kind of a frustrating thing. So it's production music, and it's the same music that I used for my 5-minute commentaries as an opener. And I said, I kind of like that, and I kind of like the opening beat, and that made it easy to every second change a frame of video and do an opening, and it was what I was familiar with, so I continued to use it as my theme music for this particular channel, and for a long time at the opening of this particular channel I'd use that music. Well, now I've kind of just gone to make it a faster opening rather than having like a 20-second opening. I decided now let's just go ahead and make it a real 5-second with a sounder, and then go right into the video, and I use that same music when I'm doing a transition into maybe showing you some statistics on a pen, some just underlying music. And when I did this giveaway, I just decided, yeah, let's just whip out the music, drop it. I've already got it saved in my my video production software. Just drop it in, and then just run it for the duration of that video. So there you go, audiotoolsonline.com. And it was the Mood Swings collection, and I can't even. It's not even a usable disc anymore. So for those of you who have burned optical discs in the past, hoping to archive a lot of stuff, I mean, and I've done the same thing. I've archived an awful lot of MPEG files, an awful lot of video files, software files on disk, hoping to be able to save them, JPEG files. I don't know how well they're going to be preserved for future use, because every so often, you just don't. You're not able to pull stuff, but that's the disc where I got it off from. Drew Powers writes this: Troy, so enjoy your YouTube pen videos. Love the ones with your son, very cool. I would like to see one on your favorite nib manufacturers and why. Alright, I don't know if I can do an entire video on that, but here's what I will do. Why don't I do this? I can cover this really, really quickly. My favorite nib manufacturers, let's see. It really depends on whether you're talking vintage or whether you're talking modern. If you're talking vintage, then I really, really like, I like the Schaefer conical nibs. Awesome nibs, very smooth, very reliable. I also like vintage WATERMAN nibs, both the Flex and You know, I'll be honest with you, I kind of like the rigid nibs. The manifold nibs, I actually like those. A lot of people prefer the flexi. Now, I actually prefer the bigger nibs. So let's say like a number 8 Waterman. I like number 5, number 8 Waterman, somewhere in there. So I don't like the tinier nibs. I definitely don't like fine and extra fine in general. I like medium. So if you're looking at modern nibs, number 6 in a medium, I'm not big on fancy cursive italic or you know, slanted nibs, or you know, I'm just nothing fancy. I just want something to write and write well for me. So I do like Bach and Jovo are the two big manufacturers for European nibs. Of course, you're going to have Mont Blanc makes their own. You're going to have Pelican making their own, and I do like both of them very, very much. But if you're talking about nib manufacturers that are out there that supply to other folks, Bach and Jovo, I always know I'm going to get a good nib. Schmidt, hey, they're underrated as far as I'm concerned. Nemesis. Now, Nemesis, I'm pretty sure just has somebody else make it with put their name on it, knowing a little bit about Nemesis. So I doubt very highly they make their own. But you know, Schmidt actually makes a decent nib. Bach and Jovo, and for instance, I've got a number 8 titanium Bach nib. Nice nib. I paid a lot of money to get that particular nib, and it writes great. So I'm not as much on the Asian nibs. You know, Japanese nibs, everything that I've used so far, I've been not as warm to, put it that way. I personally tend to go more for the European style nibs. That's just my personal preference. Everybody has their own. I run across some of you viewers who tell me how much you love Japanese nibs. Great. If that's what you like, then fantastic. That's what you need to buy. Don't buy something because that's my recommendation. Buy it because that's what you like. And I buy what I like. That's one of the things I love about this hobby, is there's stuff out there to meet every individual's tastes, colors, wants, needs, you name it. Style, hand size, you name it. So that's one of the things I like. So get what you like. You know, when it comes to also old pens, Esterbrook made a fantastic, as far as I was concerned, almost revolutionary screw-out, screw-in kind of nib that I wish more manufacturers would do. So, anyway, those are some of my favorite nib manufacturers. European, Bach and Jovo, because you're going to find those usually in other pens, and that's what some of your major retailers that you're going to find are rebranding, or they will... Jovo will put their logo in so they can resell it as their own brand of nib. Harrison Richter writes this: what are your go-to writing tests? Interesting question. Never really had anybody ask that. If you watch any of my videos, I kind of do the same thing. I'm not so much the, hey, the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog kind of guy. There are some other guys who will write that, and you know, okay, fine. I wrote enough of that when I was in elementary school and typing it when I was in high school. But and I understand why they do that. But for me, if you just watch any of my videos, you'll see where generally I'll write the name of the pen, the nib size or style, I'll write the ink, and I'll make a couple little loops. And there's a couple of reasons why I do the loop-de-loop thing. Is number one, it tells me a lot about how the nib works and how smooth it is, but also you'll find my last name has a lot of the same swoops in it. So that means something to me when I'm writing. And then I'll go ahead and I'll do, usually, let's see if we can get any line variation out of it, see if it puts down a thicker line or just lays down more ink. We'll do a little bit of a how wet does it write, maybe a smear test with it. Well, that seems to be about all the questions that I've got for the Q&A for this particular session. Feel free to keep questions coming. And I know that some of the questions that people have submitted, if I didn't call your name and answer your question, it's probably because it was a duplicate of somebody else's, or I've already answered that particular question. So hopefully I didn't do that to leave anybody out or to insult anybody. But it was possibly a duplicate question in general. So I'm always willing to answer questions, always willing to interact with people. You can get a hold of me, TroyLaPlante.com, and from there you can find my social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, And of course here on YouTube. I like to interact with people. You can email me, by the way, from that same website, troylaplant.com. And I have gotten some emails from some of you, my viewers, and I like to keep in touch. As some of you well know, that I'm very willing to interact and discuss things with you. So, alrighty. Q&A. Thank you guys. Thank you so much. You know, it means a lot to me that you guys would take time out of your lives to listen to a schmo like me, and that you would actually give any heed whatsoever to any of the paltry knowledge that I've accumulated over the past couple of years during this hobby. And I'm just so very thankful. I'm grateful. And if I've helped any of you or inspired any of you at any point in time, then I'm glad for it. And I thank you. You know, every time I talk to Matthew about the channel, he's just very thankful. And I know that some of you want to see more of Matthew. They're back in school. The summer has been pretty hectic for us, but you know, maybe he and I will be able to do another pen video sometime soon, especially with Pelican Hubs coming up. We'll see how that goes. All right. Thanks for watching. Bye.